Are there situations when you ever thought that you are defeated and you went back to every second and every movement of that period of time to rethink and find out the reason why you felt defeated? Most of the time, our goals defeat us not because they are so big and unachievable. Instead, we are defeated many a times because our approach to success is wrong. We do not know how to go about things in our daily life so that we can come out successful in the task entrusted to us at the end. So today I wish to talk to you very briefly something about living daily to achieve the goal. For this, we do not need to look very far for an example, but we just need to turn to the life of Jesus. Jesus faced temptation right from the beginning of his ministry. He faced violent opposition, ridicule, violent abuses and assaults on his life. Life-threatening conspiracies hatched against him, and ultimately he had to hang on the cross and embrace death. Still, he accomplished what was entrusted to him, and for the reason that he came into the world. He did not have to look for excuses to evade his responsibility. Hanging upon the cross, so at the end of his life on this earth, he shouted the final cry of victory. And looking up to the heaven, he shouted, "It is finished." It simply means it is accomplished. Perhaps when he looked up to the heavens and shouted the final cry of victory, it implied his inner courage and satisfaction with which he conducted himself in this world and the way he went about fulfilling the purpose of his life. He looks up to the Father with a sense of satisfaction and says, "It is accomplished. Whatever you have entrusted to me, I have run the course of my life and my mission so well that now I can tell you that I have fulfilled that task that you had entrusted me while sending me into this world." How wonderful it will be at the end of our life that we can look back into our own life and then, like Jesus, we can lift our eyes to the Lord and then say, "Oh Lord, what you gave me, I performed it faithfully. Rest, I leave it into your hands." But tragedies happen in life that many a times we do not know at the end of our life whether we have fulfilled that which God has entrusted us, or we have been going about doing many things which we thought is perhaps what is expected from us. How did Jesus accomplish the final purpose of his life in his daily living? How did Jesus strategize his success? Did he have a big, grand, secret strategy? Or did he make progress towards the ultimate goal daily in his walk in this world? Was it a last movement, sudden attempt to accomplish what was expected from him? Or was he every day progressing towards fulfilling that which was given to him to be done in this world? If I understand the gospel story well, there is no surprise for me to say that Jesus was moving towards fulfilling the purpose with which he came into this world, inch by inch, step by step. Every day he made some advancement towards that goal for which he could say at the end, it is accomplished. Jesus' victory, in other words, was not just one-time sudden action yielding a victorious result, but it was a step forward at every movement towards that final goal. How did he do that? What can we learn from his life for our life in this world? This turns me to John chapter 4, verse 34. And there Jesus says this, "My food," said Jesus, "is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work." We find here in the words of Jesus a clear sense of the task lying in front of him. He has a clarity of thought about the goal that he has to reach, and he has an absolute knowledge of the things that must take priority in his life. By now, Jesus had a very long, meaningful discussion or conversation, we can say, with a Samaritan woman who came to the well to fetch water. But Jesus came, I believe, to this well because he had foreseen this woman, and he is coming just for her and waiting there. And as this lady comes, Jesus asks for water to drink. She doesn't understand who he is because she saw him with her physical eyes. But Jesus, in conversation with her, recognizes that what is her need and how his purpose of life connects with her struggles in daily life. So he immediately offers her the living water, which once consumed will not make her thirsty anymore. As a result of the serious theological discussion going on between them, the woman comes to recognize Jesus' true identity. As a result, you find that towards the end of that event in John's narration, this woman becomes the first preacher of the gospel in John's gospel. She is the first evangelist who's going out to the village and telling people that, come, here is someone who has told me everything about my life. Could this be the Christ for whom we were waiting? Well, that gives an opportunity for the entire village to come and meet Jesus. But then when the disciples return back, they see, just like this woman saw Jesus in his physical form, the disciples also see through their physical eyes that their guru, their teacher, is now conversing with a Samaritan woman in a lonely place, and that too alone. And perhaps that was not acceptable, and so John says that they were surprised. How come Jesus, a Jew, could be engaging in conversation with a hated race called Samaritans, and that too among them a woman? It surprised them, but then they continue to look at him and his physical need. They cared for him definitely. They cared for his physical need. So they offer him food. They cared that they bring food for him because they knew that Jesus is in a very long journey. So they bring food for him and they urge him repeatedly to eat. But as a typical thing of the Jesus in John's gospel, Jesus now again takes the opportunity of a physical reality about which there is a talk, and then lead them to the next stage to talk about a spiritual truth to them. So while disciples spoke about the physical bread for the physical body of Jesus, Jesus began to speak to them about the ultimate goal of his life in this world and what is his priority. What can we learn from Jesus in this situation? Number one, Jesus saw his task at hand as something determining his life itself. He equates his task with food, which works like a fuel for our body to function with the goal of his very incarnation. He came to Samaria to meet one Samaritan woman and to offer her the water of eternal life. He could not postpone it. Why? Simply because he knew that that is related to the purpose for which he has come into this world. He knew that he requires to make progress daily, put one step forward towards the goal every day. And if that includes even Samaritans, he will not wait for another day, but he will make a step forward even to bring the gospel to them and to save them, because that is connected to the very purpose of his incarnation. As avoiding food would weaken the traveler on foot for a far distant land, so also not doing what is required from Jesus on that day is going to weaken him and make achieving his goal impossible for him. Jesus knew that in his inaction today would be a loss for tomorrow to achieve his goal. The disciples could not understand this, so they did not understand his words. But Jesus was clear about his task and what he ought to do daily to accomplish his goal. What is his food? Jesus says it is to do the will of him who has sent me. In John chapter 6 verse 38, again Jesus says, I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me. Jesus lived every day with a clear understanding of who has sent him and why has he come down on this earth. Why has he incarnated into human form? This clarity of mind concerning the task at hand helps him to know his priority. In John 8:29, Jesus again says, I always do what pleases him who has sent me. Jesus made it sure that every day, every minute, if possible, he will seize every opportunity to put one step forward, that he would be able to get closer to the goal for which he has come, even if it is hanging up on the cross. The second important lesson that we can learn from Jesus is that he was determined to fulfill the purpose. It is one thing to begin a journey, but it is another thing to have strong will to continue the journey and to make sure that the journey comes to a meaningful end. A task begun is not a guarantee of success, but the determination to finish it well is the key to success. An athlete begins the race at the sound of the gun when it is fired. But from that second onwards, his eyes are stuck to the goal or to the end point where he must reach. And then he puts all his energy and strength into it. He makes every investment that is required from this moment in this race so that he may win his race at the end, and he will reach at the end point before anybody else. So he sets his eyes upon that goal, that last point, and he runs with full strength towards the goal. Why? Because he's determined to finish the race that he has begun 10 meters, 20 meters, 40 meters, 80 meters back, and then to finish the remaining distance to win the race. This is what Paul says in Philippians chapter 3 verse 12, that I press on to take hold of that. That is to know Christ. That is to know and experience Christ in his personal life, in his Christian journey. He says, I press on to that. And when he presses on to that, he doesn't look back, but he continues his journey from there on till the end. He persists in race with the goal before his eyes. And that helps him to put his best at present, today, at this moment, so that tomorrow he would be successful in achieving his goal. Disciples did not know Jesus' priorities, but Jesus knew his priorities, and he was determined to fulfill that which was handed over to him. So no wonder he did not care about the physical hunger, but he cared about the ultimate goal before him. Physical hunger needed physical food, but it cannot be a replacement, or it cannot become a distraction to something that is greater than what he owns in his hand at this moment. He did run the race undeterred until the end. So he shouted upon the cross at the end, it is finished. How do you want to end your race? Do you know what has God entrusted you as the goal of your life? What is God's purpose, and what will give you the satisfaction on your deathbed when you will be breathing your last and reflecting upon your life? Will you be able to say to the Lord, Lord, I have performed that which you entrusted me? Do you know what is that which is handed over to you? Your beginning and your struggle today will turn into laughter in eternity if you and I can inch closer every day to our success. Do not postpone it for tomorrow, for your tomorrow's success depends upon your today's effort. So keep the focus, work today towards accomplishing the goal at the end, so that we may finish our race well. It doesn't matter how enthusiastically and how well, how energetically we started our race, but what matters is how we run the race and how we finish the race. Let us work daily towards that goal with a clarity of thought, clarity of mind, and clarity of vision of the end point where we must reach. And by that, I'm sure that we will be having a joyous end at the end of our life. And our people will be able to celebrate our life, and God will be glorified in that. May the Lord bless us through these words, and let us make this our priority, that I will make every effort, every moment to accomplish what is expected from me today, so that I may accomplish the final and the ultimate